My son Daniel was in San Francisco this summer as climate change transformed the Bay Area into an inferno. Daniel was sickened from breathing in the toxic air. Armageddon-like events like the California fires will only get worse and more frequent unless we act quickly. The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was clear. We have only a few years left to dramatically decrease global carbon emissions and prevent irreversible climate catastrophe. If Trump wins, our time to act on climate will run out. But if we get the vote out for Biden, there's hope. Biden's climate plan is bolder than that of any other prior Democratic nominee for president, including Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. A Biden presidency is our last opportunity to prevent the climate time bomb from detonating. So please vote for Joe Biden. Your vote counts. And inspire your friends and family to vote, and phone bank for Joe and for other Democrats and progressives at home safely from your computer. Local organizations will help set you up. Two great ones are the Upper Valley Democrats and Rights and Democracy of New Hampshire and Vermont. So a win for Joe Biden is a win for Bernie and a win for our climate future.
Sunshine of my life. That's why I'll always be around. You are the apple of my eye.
Please welcome New Hampshire Democratic Party Regional Field Director Chyna Potts.
Sorry, y'all, my earring got stuck. I can't read without that. I'm gonna take it off. Woo! This means this is gonna be good. Hi, my name is Chyna Potts. I'm so glad to be here, and it's such an honor as always. If you didn't know already, Bernie Sanders and I have a lot in common. We may not come from the same place or look the same, but at the core, we're fighting for the same things. Back in 2016, I was a happy-go-lucky college student who wanted to make a change. When I came across Bernie Sanders' message for the first time in my life, I decided to volunteer. And although I felt passionate enough to get involved then, I couldn't have possibly known just how significant my experience with Bernie would be years later. Fast forward to a year ago, 4 years later, I am $40,000 in student debt after receiving my BFA in acting degree. I was working a minimum wage job on my way to become a substitute teacher just so I could follow my dreams one day. Then, I was offered a job with the Bernie campaign. And suddenly, I was back working for a movement and a candidate that I loved. Around this time, I developed crippling anxiety to the point that it would make me physically sick. When I inquired with my friends about their experience, they said that they couldn't afford to go to therapy or their co-pays were way too high. And suddenly, I really began to see these blind spots in the American healthcare system. As I began to get better and change my life, I knew that we needed a bigger change implemented in America and that I needed to be a part of it. Over a 5-month span, I had the pleasure of working with the Bernie Sanders campaign. Then over the past couple months, I've had the honor to work with the Joe Biden campaign with the New Hampshire Democratic Party. I know that the Biden-Harris administration is fighting against the things that have once tried to hold me back from where I am today: debt, racial inequality, and the shortcomings of our public health system. Not to mention that I have Kamala Harris, someone who looks like me, a woman of color, fighting to make changes for people like me. Thanks to Joe, Kamala, and Bernie, I know we're on our way to a better and more equal America. But let's be clear. All the work we've done in these last few years is at risk if we don't step up when it matters. We all need to come together and fight for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to expand and access the healthcare system, to address racial inequality, and finally come to enact meaningful change in this country. If you have not already, please cast your ballot right now for Joe and Kamala Harris in the 2020 election. And go to iwillvote.com/NH to learn more about all the ways you can help. And after that, volunteer with us. We need all hands on deck before November 3rd. Join our weekly phone banks, our text banks, or help us start up lit drops as well. Get involved in 2020 so Democrats can save our democracy. Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Please welcome back Jeff Beam.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. That was a Beatles song. Good segue here. I'm going to play a John Lennon song. It would have been his 80th birthday this week.
Everybody's talking, but no one says a word. Everybody's making love, but no one really cares. There's Nazis in the bathroom just below the stairs. Always something happening, and no one lets it know. Always something cooking, but nothing in the pot. They're starving back in China, so finish what you got. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Strange days indeed. Strange days indeed. Everybody's running, but no one makes a move. Everybody's winning with nothing left to lose. There's a little yellow idol to the north of Kathmandu. Everybody's flying, but no one leaves the ground. Everybody's crying, but no one makes a sound. There's little loves to the movies, you just gotta lay it around. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Strange days indeed. Oh, strange days indeed. Everybody's flying and never touch the sky. There's a UFO over New York, and I ain't too surprised. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Strange days indeed. Most peculiar, mama. Whoa! Strange days indeed. Thank you. Strange days indeed, folks.
This event has been planned to adhere to state and local guidelines to ensure everyone's safety. In addition, we ask that you please maintain a safe social distance of at least 6 feet, and please wear your mask at all times. And now, please welcome SEIU member Germano Martinez.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Germano Martinez. I am an immigrant, a husband, a father, a grandfather, a 31-year union member, a resident of New Hampshire since 1970s. When I became naturalized American citizen, I drove from that naturalization ceremony with my certificate in hand straight to town hall and registered to vote. Since then, I haven't missed one single election because to me, citizenship comes with rights and responsibilities. What that means to me is, while I have the right to enjoy all the beautiful things that this nation has to offer me, I also have the responsibility, the duty to exercise my civic duty to vote, and this I do. In my early beginnings in New Hampshire, I was a manufacturing worker, something which I'm very proud of. What if I told you that once a manufacturing worker was paid a living wage, enough to buy their own house, had excellent health care with no premiums, no co-pays, no deductions, no tricks. It included dental, hearing, eye care, prescription. That worker also received a profit-sharing benefit check, had employer-matched retirement savings account, had employee-sponsored college tuition, was able to graduate with a master's degree without one single student loan, a factory worker. Many of you will say right here, impossible. Not here, we're not communists. Well, that worker was me, right here in New Hampshire, in the 80s. And so were many, many, many other people. That's how the working class was treated back then, until corporate greed came along and stole the American dream from us one piece at a time. First, they took the profit sharing. Then they took the tuition thing. Then they took the insurance. The insurance became from a no copay to a copay. Then a copay became a no pay. Then became no insurance. And most people don't have any insurance. A massive transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top. So the first time that I heard Senator Bernie Sanders speak about an economy that works for everyone, not just the few, where health care is a right, not a privilege, where every vote counts, I knew right then that these weren't radical ideas. These were basic principles of a just economy. So in 2016, and again this time 2020, my labor union, State Employee Association, SEIU 1984, endorsed Senator Bernie Sanders because New Hampshire wants an economy that works for everyone, not just the few. This is a fight we will never give up, because when we do well, I do well, you do well, we all do well, the whole economy does well, because we are the economy. Friends, Donald Trump lied to us, and he continues to lie. He said he was for workers, right? And instead, we got massive layoffs. Why? Because he is inept. He is unable to do anything that is constructively correct. Even when correctly advised, he'll go against that. He said he was for health care. He wants a better health care. But you know, his only plan is to take whatever health care you have and replace it with nothing. He took taxes from billionaires and gave it to the poorest people in this country to pay for it. And he calls that equity, and he wants to do more of it. No more years! We simply cannot afford another 4 years of Trump's lies, chaos, and disaster. Can we? No. Look, when I grew up, before I got here, the country I come from, I grew up in the 60s in a country that suffered under a fascist dictatorship. Back then, they prosecuted unions, arrested union leaders, beat them up. Some of them disappeared, never to be found again. Lula da Silva was arrested just for showing up. They used unmarked military forces to beat up peaceful protesters. They went after the free press. People that would speak up against anybody or gather in a protesting thing were shot with rubber bullets and then real bullets. I know fascism when I see it, and I see it again. What we have here now is a fascist regime in the making that needs to be stopped. This election is the fight of our lives. We need to stand together, vote, and elect Joe Biden. Joe Biden is endorsed by SEIU and all other unions. I trust Joe Biden. Joe Biden will not turn his back on us. He will treat our health care the same way he treats his own family health care. Joe Biden will protect Social Security and Medicare, while Donald Trump promised to give that to his Wall Street friends. The way to stop all this is to elect Joe Biden in November. Do as I did. Vote early, vote Biden, and vote now. It is great to be here with you, and forward.
Please welcome Dartmouth College pre-med student, Ramya Chalapa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ramya Chalapa. I'm a sophomore at Dartmouth College. As a young person looking ahead to my future and the futures of my peers, it is a terrifying feeling to realize that the decision makers in government don't really seem to have an interest in preserving that future for us. We're living in the tipping point for several critical issues that threaten the livability of life for millions of people. The climate crisis has reached a boiling point where it just cannot wait anymore. This has been true since the release of the 2018 United Nations Climate Report, outlining the pressing need to act now. I think it's becoming more and more apparent to us, however, every day the urgency of this crisis, as we watch the daily lives of millions of people in the West Coast being ravaged by fires and unhealthy air quality due to irresponsible environmental practices. We need an administration that believes in science so that they can take action when needed to protect their people and to protect us. But we also need an administration that inherently believes in morality and the value of human life. The past several months have brought to the forefront the reality of decades worth of racial injustice and institutional violence in the United States. The pandemic has also revealed gaping inequalities in healthcare access and treatment,
disproportionately hurting populations that don't have easy access to wealth or health care. Specifically, as a young American woman, I am now more concerned than ever about the continued existence of my own bodily autonomy and choice as we face obstacles to protecting the Supreme Court and other safeguards that are meant to protect us from infringements on our most basic and fundamental rights. We are at an intersection faced by the culmination of years of disregard for the structural inequities and class differences that plague the United States. I'm a sophomore in college. This is when I'm supposed to figure out who I want to be, what I want to do with my life. But it feels difficult to have dreams and aspirations for ourselves when we're dealing with the constant anxiety of an uncertain and super chaotic future. When I saw the accomplishments and ideals of the progressive movement and the policies and solutions that Senator Bernie Sanders championed, I felt for the first time in a really long time hope that an equitable and humane future is possible for my generation. And I still believe in the strength of this movement because I believe in its intentions, that it exists and will continue to fight to provide tangible solutions and justice for the millions fighting institutional, racial, and structural violence right now. One of the most vital things to do in this next month is to vote for Joe Biden and to vote in an administration that has the intention to protect its people, that has policies to maintain access to health care and strive towards a cleaner, safer environmental future. But most importantly, we must vote in an administration that is interested in listening to its people and willing to change and help us as we continue to struggle towards justice for everyone. Please go, when you have a chance, to iwillvote.com/NH to learn more about all of the ways that you can vote this election. And if possible, take the time to bring in those around you to vote. We won't make the gains that we have made in the past few years futile as long as we look forward to the future and vote in the next month. Thank you.
Please welcome NEA New Hampshire President Megan Tuttle.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. My name is Megan Tuttle. I'm a mom of 3 boys, an educator, and president of NEA New Hampshire. We have over 17,000 members, and we're the largest union in the state. We've been very active in this year's elections. Why? Because over the past 4 years, Donald Trump has been a disaster for students and educators across the nation, starting with his appointment of Betsy DeVos, the least qualified Secretary of Education in American history to run the department. Because over the past 4 years, the governor of our state and his commissioner of education, the least qualified commissioner in New Hampshire history, have been a disaster for public education and have followed lockstep every page from the Trump-DeVos How to Dismantle Public Education playbook. But mostly because our members are here, they care, and they vote. We believe in the promise of public education, and we know Joe does too. We believe every student, regardless of family income or place of residence, deserves a quality education, and so does Joe. We believe public education is the gateway to opportunity, and that all students have the human and civil right to a quality public education that develops their potential, independence, and character, and so does Joe. We believe, public education is vital to building respect for the worth, dignity, and equality of every individual in our diverse society. We believe public education is the cornerstone of our republic and provides individuals with the skills to be involved, informed, and engaged in our representative democracy. We believe public funding belongs in public schools. Biden and Harris are the dream team that students, educators, and parents need in the White House. We've seen their commitment to our students' futures time and time again on the campaign trail, and we know they're committed to the vision we all share to help every student reach their potential by investing in our public schools and colleges. We're here because we know that on day one, Joe Biden will fire Betsy DeVos and replace her with someone who actually has experience in a public school classroom. We're here because we know Joe Biden will be a partner with public educators. Along with Dr. Jill Biden, an educator and a longtime NEA member, they'll listen to those who know the names of the kids in the classrooms when it comes to deciding what's best for our students. He'll support paying educators like the professionals we are and invest in education opportunities for all Americans, from preschool to grad school and beyond. He will keep his promise to put the health and welfare of our students, educators, and families first. He will listen to doctors and scientists on when and how to reopen schools safely, and to listen to educators and parents on how to best support our students during and coming out of these tough times. Steady, informed, compassionate leadership has never been more important. Our schools and our nation deserve nothing less. That's why NEA New Hampshire is proud to stand with Biden and Harris. This election, don't leave anything to chance. Make a plan to vote. Be sure you're registered. Encourage your friends to make plans to vote. There's so much at stake this year. This may well be the most important election of our lifetime. Be heard and vote. Thank you.
And I could cry.
Please welcome Executive Counselor Andy Volinsky.
Hey, everyone. I used to be a candidate for governor. But I'm sitting here today in this beautiful setting, looking up at that ski jump and wondering who put the sign "Hope" at the bottom of it. I think voting is about hope. Voting is about faith. Voting is about what you believe in. If, like me, you believe that Joe Biden is not the kind of person who will put children in cages and vilify immigrants, then you need to make a plan to vote. If, like me, you think there is still time to combat climate change and that Joe Biden will do that, then you need to make a plan to vote. If you think, like me, that Joe Biden believes that health care is a basic human right and he will not endeavor to invalidate the ACA, then you need to make a plan to vote. There is some symmetry to my being in Lebanon today. Almost 10 months ago in Lebanon, I endorsed our next speaker in his run for president. I was proud to do that because his policies, like mine, deal with income inequality, access to education, health care is a basic human right, combating climate change like it really matters. It is my privilege and my honor once again to introduce your friend and mine, Senator Bernie Sanders.
You know, I have participated in many rallies in my life. This is clearly the most unusual. So I want to thank everybody for being here for this limited audience event. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to the Vice President. Let me begin by wishing the President and the First Lady a full and speedy recovery from the COVID-19 illness that they are now dealing with. Of course, we wish the same for my colleagues in the Congress as well as the many, many millions of Americans who are struggling with this terrible disease. What the last few days have told us is if there was ever any doubt, it should now be clear that no one is safe from this pandemic. It doesn't matter if you are a frontline worker in a hospital, and I want to take a moment to thank all of the doctors and the nurses and the medical personnel who have put their lives on the line to protect all of us. And it doesn't matter if you are an essential worker in a supermarket, if you are a packing house worker, if you are a bus driver, and it doesn't matter if you are the President of the United States. Each and every one of us is vulnerable, and we will remain vulnerable until there is a vaccine or a perfected cure. That is the reality, and there is no way to get away from that. There are some who say that we have to make a choice between having a strong economy and protecting the American people from this terrible disease. I disagree. The truth is, we will never have a strong economy so long as this pandemic continues to surge, as it is today. We will never have a strong economy if people are afraid to go to work, afraid to go to school, afraid to shop, afraid to have dinner at a restaurant, or afraid to do all of the things that we normally do. We will never have a strong economy unless we get this pandemic under control. Is the solution to this crisis to shut down the economy and lock everybody in their homes? No, it is not. We can keep our country moving forward if we do so in a way that is disciplined, not dangerous, that is responsible, not reckless. And now I want to ask you and the American people some very simple questions. Which candidate for president has shown that he will be disciplined, that he will be responsible in dealing with this pandemic? Which candidate for president has made it clear that he will develop policies based on the advice of the best scientists in our country and the world? Which candidate for president will develop national protocols and guidelines and model the behaviors we all need to engage in to keep our families, our neighbors, and ourselves safe? Which candidate has the temperament to see us through this difficult crisis? And let me repeat that point. Which candidate has the temperament to see us through this difficult crisis? I don't think there is any doubt that the answer to those questions is that in the worst public health crisis of the last 100 years, we need Joe Biden as our president. And now let me say a word about the economy. And let me be blunt, tell you the way it is. And that is that the working class of this country is in more desperation today than at any time since the Great Depression of the 1930s. That is a fact. It is a sad fact, but that is the truth. Tens of millions of our fellow citizens have lost their jobs as a result of this pandemic. They have lost their incomes. They have lost their health insurance. They have depleted their life savings. They cannot afford to pay their rent or their mortgages. And in too many cases, in the richest country on earth, they cannot afford to put food on the table for their kids. Today, the percentage of Americans who lack employment is at the highest level in 45 years, while tens of millions of Americans who do have jobs are often working part-time for starvation wages. And as bad as the economy is in general, it is far worse for the African American and Latino communities. During this pandemic, nearly 60% of Latino families and 55% of African American families have either experienced a job loss or a pay cut. How devastating is that? Meanwhile, and it is important to make this point because it is not made often enough, while the working class of this country is being devastated as a result of the pandemic, not everybody in America is hurting. The truth is that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, over the last 6 months, that situation has gotten even more grotesque. In the last number of months, 643 billionaires, that's not a lot of people, have seen their wealth go up by $845 billion. And let me just say that again. While 30 million Americans have lost their jobs, while 12 million Americans have lost their health insurance, while 29 million Americans do not have enough food to eat, while 40 million of our people face eviction, 643 billionaires increased their wealth by $845 billion over the last 6 months alone. So that is the state of the economy today. Simple truth is that the very, very rich are getting much, much richer, while nearly everybody else is struggling or getting poorer. And let us be very clear. Despite what you may have heard, over the past 4 years, the economy has not been very good for the working class of this country. Sometimes we lose track of that, but here is the truth. You don't have, over the last 4 years, and I'm not now just talking about the last 6 months, but you don't have a strong economy when half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Do you all know what living paycheck to paycheck is about? I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. Joe Biden grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. Many of you are living paycheck to paycheck. If you got one. It was not a good economy for the last 4 years when 87 million Americans were uninsured or underinsured, couldn't get to a doctor when they were sick, and unbelievably and horrifically, when 68,000 Americans were dying each year because they could not go to the doctor when they got sick. Can you imagine that? Richest country in the history of the world. 68,000 of our people die each year because they can't get to a doctor when they get sick because they lack the money and don't have any health insurance. It is not and has not been a good economy when over 40 million workers were earning starvation wages of less than $15 an hour. And here again is the simple truth. Nobody in America can make it on $8 or $9 or $10 an hour. And over the last 4 years, it has not been a good economy when half of older workers, and we don't talk about this enough, when half of older workers had no retirement savings. Imagine being 55, 60, 65, you don't got a nickel in the bank, and now you're on retirement. And how do you do that with any shred of dignity? It is not a good economy when over 500,000 Americans are homeless. 500,000 of our people are homeless, including many veterans who put their lives on the line to defend us. And as part of that housing crisis that we are experiencing, some 18 million families are spending half of their incomes on housing or more. How do you take care of your basic needs if you're spending half of your income on housing? But I must tell you, over the last 4 years, it was again a great economy for the billionaire class, and it has become even better for them during this horrific pandemic. My friends, we need an economy that works for all of us, not just the few. And it's not just in recent years. It's not just over the last 4 years. Here is something else that we don't talk about. Over the last 45 years, there has been a massive redistribution of wealth in America, but sadly, that redistribution has gone in the wrong direction. From the working class, from the middle class, from the poor, to the very richest people in this country. Since 1990, while the top 1% saw their wealth go up by $22 trillion. You got that? Top 1% saw their wealth increase by $22 trillion. The bottom half of America saw their wealth actually go down. Today, the average worker in America, and this is really quite astounding when you consider the growth of technology and the explosion in productivity, the average American worker today is now making $34 a week less than he or she did 47 years ago after adjusting for inflation. Can you imagine that? Over a 47-year period, an explosion in technology, increase in worker productivity, and yet the average American is earning less than he or she did 47 years ago. What I understand, that I believe you understand and the American people know, is that we are all becoming more and more outraged with the corporate greed that we are seeing every single day. The American people are sick and tired of large, profitable corporations shutting down here in America and then moving to low-wage countries all over the world. They are sick and tired of seeing CEOs now make 300 times more than their average employees. While they give themselves huge bonuses, they cut back on the health care benefits of their workers. The American people are sick and tired of that corporate greed. They are sick and tired, all of us, paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, while at the same time, the pharmaceutical industry makes tens of billions of dollars in profit year after year after year. In my view, the American people understand that we can no longer sustain an economy which has more income and wealth inequality today than at any time since the 1920s, and when 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of this country. 3 people. That is not acceptable, and under Joe Biden and under a Democratic Congress, we're going to change all of that. Together, we're going to end a rigged tax code that allows billionaires to pay a lower tax rate, an effective tax rate, than nurses, teachers, and truck drivers, while at the same time we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. So together, what this campaign is about, and what we must do in the future, is bring our people together by the millions to create a government and an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Now, it is no great secret that Joe Biden and I disagree on a number of issues. That's a fact. But there is also no question that the economic proposals that Joe Biden is supporting are strong and will go a long, long way to improving life for working families. And I want to take a minute to talk about those proposals because of everything that's going on in this crazy world today. I think there has not been enough focus on Joe's economic proposals. Again, they're not mine, but they are strong proposals, and I want you and the American people to know what they are. Joe Biden, you and I know that it is not acceptable that tens of millions of Americans work at starvation wages. People cannot make it on $9, $10 an hour. Joe knows that. You know that. I know that. And that is why Joe Biden is going to help us raise that minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. What Joe understands is that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. And Joe Biden also understands that it is absurd that women make 75 cents on the dollar compared to men. And if you're a minority woman, that's even lower. And that is why Joe is going to make sure that we have equal pay for equal work. And Joe also knows that the path toward a stronger middle class is strengthening trade unions in America. Right now, all across this country, there are millions of workers who want to join unions, but because of the heavy-handed corporate tactics that now exist, it's impossible for them to do that. Joe and I and the United States Congress are going to go forward and make it easier for workers to join unions, engage in collective bargaining. And Joe also understands that we have got to stop providing corporate welfare to companies that are throwing American workers out on the street and moving abroad. It's absolutely insane that we provide welfare to these guys, and then they say thank you, and they shut down factories and plants in America. And there's something else that Joe understands, and that is that in the midst of the worst economic crisis in our lifetimes, we need to create millions and millions of good-paying union jobs. And the fastest way to do that is to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our wastewater plants, our water systems, and to build millions of units of affordable housing. And I'll tell you what else Joe understands. He understands that we have got to end the international embarrassment of the United States being the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid medical and family leave. When a woman in America gives birth, she should not be forced to go back to work after 1 or 2 weeks. When a child gets sick, mom or dad should be able to stay home, take care of that kid, and not lose a day's pay. And that is why, and I want everybody to hear it, because it's not been talked about enough, that is why Joe Biden has proposed at least 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave for working families. And when we talk about babies and we talk about young children, we all know that our current child care system is dysfunctional and it is totally inadequate. Our children and their parents deserve high-quality, reliable, and affordable child care. And that is why Joe has proposed universal pre-K education for every 3- and 4-year-old child in this country. And when we talk about having the best educated workforce in the world, Joe understands that we have got to make public colleges and universities tuition-free for the working class of this country. And that we must substantially reduce student debt in America. And at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, Joe Biden understands that we must demand that the wealthiest people and the most profitable corporations in our country start paying their fair share of taxes. No more tax breaks for billionaires while 500,000 Americans sleep out on the street. No more tax breaks for companies that ship jobs overseas or shift their profits to the Cayman Islands. And Joe also understands that 1 out of 5 Americans who walk into their doctor's office and gets a prescription, they cannot afford to fill that prescription because of the outrageous cost of prescription drugs in this country. And what Joe Biden knows and what I know is that if anybody is serious about health care reform, we have finally got to summon the guts to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. During my campaign for the presidency, I took a trip from the Midwest a few miles into Canada to buy insulin for diabetics. And we got millions of people who are dealing with diabetes and the need for insulin. We went 15 minutes away from Detroit, Michigan, into Ontario, Canada. We bought the same damn insulin as sold in the United States for 1/10 the price that was charged in America. 1/10 the price. That is an outrage. And together, Joe knows, I know, and you know that we have to take on the collusion, the price fixing, and the greed of the pharmaceutical industry so that Americans no longer pay the highest prices in the world for the medicine we need. Now, as many of you also know, the United States is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Meanwhile, despite paying almost twice as much per person for health care as the people of other countries, over 90 million Americans today are uninsured or underinsured. And unbelievably, over 500,000 people go bankrupt every single year because they cannot afford to pay their medical bills. While Joe and I disagree on the best path to get to universal coverage, his proposal will greatly expand access to health care and make it more affordable for tens of millions of people across this country. And here's an important point that has not been talked about enough during this campaign. He is going to lower the eligibility age for Medicare from 65 to 60, meaning millions of more people will be eligible for Medicare. He will expand Medicare to cover dental care, eyeglasses, and hearing aids. And he will substantially increase funding for community health centers to make sure that millions of Americans get the primary health care and the mental health care that they desperately need. Joe knows that when you talk about health care, you're talking about mental health care as well. And by the way, if the Democrats gain control of the Senate, you're looking at the chairman of the subcommittee on health. And trust me that the healthcare industry and the drug companies will understand a very new reality when that happens. Let me conclude by once again thanking all of you for coming out today and for saying that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and I want everybody to remember that, sometimes we forget it. We're not a poor country. We are the wealthiest country, not only in the world, but in the history of the world. We need to create an economy that works for all of us, that works for our children, that works for our seniors, that works for the middle class, for the working class. We need to have a government and an economy that works for all, not just wealthy campaign contributors and the 1%. There is no excuse, none whatsoever, that in our country we have millions of workers today who are unemployed. We can put those workers back to work. There is no reason why over 90 million people lack health insurance or are underinsured. We can provide health care to all as a human right. There is no reason why we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth and a dysfunctional child care system. If we love our country, we love our children. And it's high time we had the best educational system in the entire world. So, brothers and sisters, at this critical and unprecedented moment in American history, it is absolutely imperative that we stand together, black and white, Latino, Asian American, Native American, gay and straight, those of us born in the United States, those of us who are immigrants. Let us stand together and elect Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. Thank you all very much.